Okay, so now that you've got the gamepad down, now we're gonna look at the keyboard and see how the keyboard is fairly similar, but it is also a little bit different. So we're gonna now add in the code for the keyboard so we can use buttons like R, B, G, and Y on the keyboard to change the colors. So what I need you to do is go into Visual Studio. This is the program we created together last. Remember, it's called Unit 4 Input Types. Now you'll notice that I only have the code for the red button on the gamepad in here. That's because it was your task to do blue, green, and yellow with the gamepad. So kind of keep that in mind. Your code will be a little bit longer than mine. But what we're going to do is we're going to add to this, and we're now going to add functionality with the keyboard in here. So you can see my code is just set up for the gamepad. So what you're going to do is you're now going to add code for the keyboard. So it's very, very similar to start. So up here, I'm going to put that this is my gamepad input. And then what I'm going to do down here is I'm going to put in my keyboard input. So you can structure this how you'd like. That's just how I'm going to set it up so I can separate between my gamepad and my keyboard. So the first thing I want to do is I want to save the settings of the keyboard into my game. So if you remember from the video that you just watched, we do this using a keyboard state object. So we use a keyboard state object. This object is going to hold the state of all of the keys on your keyboard, and there are a ton of them. So that's a really nifty object to have in your game. So keyboard state object, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call mine KB for keyboard. And then we're going to get the state of all of these keys by using the keyboard class, the getState method, and then we don't send in any parameters because we don't have to differentiate between more than one gamepad because normally a player is only playing with one keyboard. So this line of code right here goes into the keyboard class, gets all of the state of those buttons, and then saves them inside of the object KB, which is a keyboard state object. Now from here, we want to increase the red intensity when the R key on the keyboard is pressed. So you note from the last video we watched, this is a little bit different than the gamepad. It's similar, but it's slightly different. So if we look back in our notes here, what you'll notice is that it is slightly different in respect that we use this method right here called isKeyDown. So we access the keyboard object we have, which is KB. So I'm going to type in, okay, if KB, looking at my keyboard, dot is key down. So that is checking on my keyboard, and then I'm going to look for a particular key. So here I'm going to type in capital keys dot, and I want to access the R. So what you'll notice here is this line of code right here, KB, that's my keyboard state object that's holding the state of all my keys, and it's saying, okay, is key down, check if R is down. And this method actually returns a true or a false statement. So you could leave this as is because it does return a Boolean statement. However, most students like to include, okay, equals true. Just to double check and say, okay, is key down equal to true? If it is, then I want the following code to run. So then I can put red plus plus and go from there. So here now, if I press start, what I notice is that my screen stays black until I press the red button on my keyboard, then it increases. And if I stop pressing it, it stops. Then I can keep increasing and it stops if I stop pressing R. And it responds to the input that I am giving it. So what I'd like you to do now is, now that we've added in the red intensity, I essentially want you to do the same thing you did with the gamepad. So you're going to add the code to increase the blue intensity when the B key is pressed. You're going to add code to increase the green intensity when the G key is pressed. You're going to increase the yellow intensity when the Y key is pressed. And remember that yellow is formed by green and red increasing together. So I'd like you to tackle this next task, see if you can add in additional keyboard input, and then from there, once you're done, you can move on to the next video.